Hello, everybody. Today's review is going to be of The Running Man, which, ironically, I couldn't find. Like, I thought it was gone in theaters where I live, and then turns out that it just wasn't in my, I guess, recommended on my Cineplex app. So, yeah, I ended up going to watch it this weekend instead of last weekend. So, Sisu was last weekend, and then The Running Man was this weekend. I was really just gonna wait till Sisu came out on digital, but I did go and see it, and I thought it was better than the first one. So, surprise, surprise there. Anyway, you'll know more about that one when that review comes out as well. Uh, but yeah, today we're talking about The Running Man, which was written by Stephen King, and I think did he partially direct this movie too, or was he just a writer and producer sort of thing? Um, I don't really know, but I know that obviously this is like a story that he's written. So, yeah, it definitely had some nods to him in the movie. So ones that were really noticeable was when they were. I want to talk about these before I get into the casting list. Was when they were standing in line to enter their competitions or whatever. They were standing in an S, which is obviously like a subtle hint to like his first initial, obviously, like Stephen King, or at least that's what I was getting anyway. Maybe there's something more to it than that. And then, of course, talking about like Derry, like Maine Derry, where it would have lived. And then I believe that the house that Michael Cera's character played, that he had all booby trapped up, was the house from Pet Cemetery, I believe. Don't quote me on that one because I could be wrong, but I do believe that that is the house from the original Pet Cemetery movie. Um, Again, don't quote me on that one because I might be wrong, but I do believe that it looked really familiar. So I'm thinking that that was the mansion or house from the Pet Cemetery movie. And then there are probably other ones like The Bunker. I'm not really sure whether that would have been from a movie that Stephen King did that I just haven't seen yet, or whether that was just for this movie. I'm not really sure, but I feel like there were other subtle ones in there, um, like just some of the rooms that they entered, like where they kind of kept it a little bit, like lingered a little bit longer than some other parts of the movie. I feel like there were other Easter eggs in there for sure, but those were the most noticeable ones to me at least. So we had Glenn Powell, who played Ben Richards, Lee Pace, who played Evan McCone, Jamie Lawson, who played Sheila Richards, Katie O'Brien, who played Jenny Laughlin, Martin Hurley, who played Tim Jansky, Daniel Ezra, who played Bradley, Angelo Gray, who played Stacy, Josh Brolin, who played Dan Killian, Amelia Jones, who played Amelia Williams. I thought that was kind of funny. William H. Macy, who played Molly, Michael Cera, who played Elton Pericus, and Coleman Domingo, who played Bobby T. So this movie is all about kind of like, I guess, like the upper class and lower class, and how they definitely kind of, there doesn't seem to be like a middle class, uh, like I would be considered middle class based on my income sort of thing. So I guess there it doesn't seem to be like a middle class type of people anymore. It's like the rich and the poor. And now obviously this movie is supposed to be set in the future, right, based on what it is. But um, yeah, so I guess unfortunately, uh, Ben is having a pretty rough go of life. His daughter is sick. His wife's taking on pretty much every shift she can. At I believe I thought she was going to be like a nurse at the beginning, but I guess she's like a is she a waitress or something? They don't really explain her profession, or maybe she's just kind of taking whatever job she can to make ends meet. I think, and that's kind of what. And at the very beginning, Ben was trying to get his job back, but unfortunately, it failed miserably, and he's been blacklisted from any job he can possibly get. So basically, his last hope is to enter one of these like game shows, and he's kind of mapping it out to figure out which one will get him the most money so that he can get his daughter the proper health care that she needs. Um, Now, we do find out that she's just dying from like the flu, so kind of like, I guess, a little bit worse than the common cold, obviously. Now, what strand of flu it would be in, like, I don't know how far in the future this is supposed to be set. Uh, so yeah, I'm not really sure what strand of flu it would be, and obviously it seems like the poor people are the ones that, like the poorer class of people are obviously the ones that are getting all of the sickness because they can't afford to get the kind of care that they need to help prevent from anything. Um, like even something as simple as like a uh, vaccination, or um, like even just the foods or whatever they could get to help prevent them from getting sick, right? Obviously, if you're not giving your body the nutrients it needs, your immune system's going to shut down and be more susceptible to viruses and sicknesses and so on and so forth, right? So it would make sense that if they were barely making ends meet, they probably didn't have the food that they needed, and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty rough go of things, and then obviously the game shows he thinks will help. Now, of course, the most that anybody's won on the game shows he wants to go on to is like $1,000, and of course, the Running Man is the one that everybody thinks is fake, but and obviously there hasn't been a winner since season 1, so I can't remember exactly what season they were on in this, but yeah, it wasn't like his odds weren't going to be great if he went into the show, right? And of course, when they're doing like their little interviews with him, they basically state that he's like the angriest person that's ever entered the show, and he goes, this really pisses me off that he's the angriest person that's ever entered the show. And so on his adventures, obviously they have like a 12-hour head start. Each of the runners have a 12-hour head start. And it seems that there's like a formula to each of the shows. So everybody they have to record themselves for 10 minutes a day, send in their tapes. If they don't, they're eliminated. But they're still hunted. So it's kind of interesting. So they're being hunted by this group called the Hunters. Kind of unoriginal, but I mean, it is what it is. This movie wasn't supposed to be taking itself like super seriously, but oh my god, the action sequences were insane. And I do believe that Glenn Powell did some of his own stunts for this movie, so kudos to him for that. Because that's not easy as an actor to do, right? You're trying to protect yourself and not get injured, but it seems that he's kind of coming out of his shell a little bit with that, because I know that in past interviews he said that he would never do his own stunts, and I believe that he did some of his own in this movie. I'm not sure if he did all of them. Probably some of the bigger ones he would have had his backup man come in and do them, but I do believe that he did a few of his own stunts in this movie, so he's kind of coming out of his shell, I guess, with that. And I know that Tom Cruise has talked about him potentially being kind of like the only person that he thinks would take over the Mission Impossible series if they did decide to continue it. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be the Ethan Hunt story, so I'm not exactly sure where they would go with that. But anyhow, that's not what this movie. That's not what we're talking about today. So where was I? Oh yeah, so anybody can hunt him, I guess, and kill him. Or was it just the hunters that were supposed to kill him? No, but I think anybody had the opportunity to kill these guys, right? Now the hunters were obviously after them, and the hunters only seemed to want to kill them on camera on live TV. Now everybody else that was after them was just out to kill them, because of course they were obviously going to paint all of these runners as bad people, and boy did they really give it all, making Ben look like the bad guy. Because he was an angry person, it was pretty easy to switch what he was saying on live TV compared to the tapes he sent in, right? So they could really paint him up for the show. And of course, obviously, as he was going along and he was the longer running person, the ratings go up, and because the ratings are going up, they're going to keep him alive a little bit longer, or attempt to keep him alive a little bit longer, right? And Dan, who is talking to him one-on-one at certain points, is trying to spin his own story in a way that will get Ben to come to the showbiz side of things. Now, he pretends that the hunters went in and disobeyed their orders and killed Ben's family at the end of the movie. So, of course, Ben just snaps and kills the whole plane full of them, except, of course, for McCone, who was obviously the stronger of the group and the leader of the hunters. And I guess he was the one that won in season 1 from what he claims anyway, was that he was the only other person to take the deal, but eventually they just killed his family anyway. So I don't really know why he's still serving them. I guess maybe because if he doesn't, they're just going to kill him regardless. So he's just taking the money each season that he can, um, to keep himself alive, I guess. And of course, Ben thinks he's lying. But I mean, at this point, how would he know who's telling the truth and who's not, right? Like, um, and of course, uh, they fake Ben's death at the end of the show. He was able to eject from the plane. Now, I'm not really sure whether they were trying to fake it or they were actually trying to kill him. But of course, Bradley, who was one of the characters in the show um, that helps Ben along the way, is also the one trying to decode the show, and he's been decoding it for years under like obviously a fake name. I wish I could remember the name that he used, but um, anyway, yeah, he's been decoding the show like an episodic thing that he does on like online, where he decodes the whole show right from season one, episode one. I think it was all the way to season like, was it season 15 or whatever? I think that might have been the season we were in. It might have been even later than that, because I think he talks about season 15 or season 13. There was a lot of seasons he talked about in the show. In fact, even the crowd being like totally erased and then put back in during the commercial break or whatever, and he like could name the episode from whatever season it was in compared to the live audience that would have been actually there when Ben was supposedly killed. So yeah, kind of crazy that he was able to decode that much. Now obviously he'd been working on this for quite some time, and he had even said to Ben, there's kind of like an algorithm to the show where each time they kind of put on like the guy who's oblivious to everything around him and doesn't really understand how the game works, and he's usually the first to die. And then of course they have like the rich person who's just in it for the money kind of thing, like really arrogant about being killed, so on and so forth. And of course anybody can kill them, right? So they have to be careful at all times. It's not just the hunters after them, it's also the people, the public, that can go after them too and take them out. So to be just kind of spending the money that you get as you go along in the show on anything seems kind of silly, like when you're just not really caring about your survival, but more caring about, the, I guess, the pointless things in life, like the whole gambling thing that they were doing, and like whatever else I guess you could dream up that you weren't necessarily able to do before, sort of thing. And then of course they have the person who's like the last one, or the survivor, I guess you could call them. I'm not really sure exactly the term he used for Ben, but obviously he figured that Ben was going to be the last one alive, right? And he was right in the end. And then of course he gives Ben what he needs to go on to this other place to stay safe until the end of the show. Now obviously that's not exactly how it goes. When Ben gets to Elton's place, turns out that Elton had been carrying on with some pretty heavy burdens from when his dad was killed. And I guess he believes that it was the network that obviously did it, right? So he calls them in and has his whole house booby-trapped and has a little bit of his own fun. And then, of course, he gets shot. And that's when Ben was able to take out one of the hunters then with the explosives and the little side-by-side that they were riding in together. And he jumps off the bridge, and then eventually he has no way to get out because all of the, like, even the light posts are tracking him through, like, heat sensors and a whole bunch of other stuff. So they always know, like, the network has control of everything, right? So they know his every move, what he's going to do. They can fake anything they want. They make it look like the girl in the car has been taken hostage. Um, and then when they're driving up the crowd there, oh, yes, that was one of the other Easter egg things. The crowd that was like cheering Ben on was very similar to the Long Walk, where they had like little bits of crowds here and there cheering on the walkers in that competition. So I thought that was pretty cool too. I guess that was one of the other noticeable Easter eggs for me as well. So then Ben tries to lie about having this bomb um, with him that could blow up everybody. So of course they get on a plane. Now obviously Dan is way ahead of him. He knows that it's just this. He knows that it's just Amelia's handbag. So eventually that whole plan goes to crap. And of course Dan wants everything to happen on the air. So he takes McCone's gun from him, and then McCone and him have this huge fight at the end, and he has to kill McCone in the end. And I'm not exactly sure what did happen to Amelia. I'm trying to remember. She gets sucked into the plane, and I think does she make it safely to the ground? I can't remember if she did or not. But I think he was trying to give her like all of the books with his information in it, so that if he did die, she could sort of spread the word type thing. But I can't remember if she makes it or not. Now, he does, and then he goes back at the very end of the movie because he did say to Killian that he was going to make him pay, and he does. He kills him at the end. Now, it doesn't show it, and are they going to do a sequel to this movie? I don't know. I feel like the story was good enough to end it there, or maybe he's going to take over the game show himself because he was going to be he was offered his own show called Hunter Number 6. Now, obviously, he didn't take the deal because he knows that if he gets mixed up into that life, it's not going to be good for him either, right? He wants to do things his own way, so he goes back and kills Killian, and Bobby T leaves. It's set in his contract that he can walk at any time he wants, so he gets away scot-free. Now, it wasn't obviously Bobby's fault. He's just the host of the show. He was just doing what he was told. Dan was the one that was pulling the strings behind the scenes, obviously, and, making everything look a lot realer than it actually was. So, yeah, but this film was really good. Definitely some nods to some other Stephen King films, which I thought was cool. And yeah, I'm looking forward to whatever Stephen King does next, because some of his movies, some of the books, I guess, that they adapt into movies aren't great, but like some of the last few, I would say, over the last about decade of Stephen King books that they have put into a movie, or that he has maybe this one wasn't a book before, but anything he has written in the last decade, I would say that they've either put into a film or that he's just written for a movie has been good. So yeah, and I always like it when a director kind of, or a writer or director kind of changes a little bit. So this wasn't like a horror movie, it was kind of like an action movie, so not at all what you would expect from Stephen King, right? Because he's definitely done like the more horror or psychological or thriller type things. So yeah, it was kind of interesting to see him step out of his comfort zone maybe a little bit, and he is getting up there in age. So I mean, if he wants to explore, now would be the time, right? So anyway, yeah, I guess that's it for this review, and I will see you guys in the next one. If I didn't already say, 8 out of 10 for this movie. And yeah, I would say it's one that you should definitely go see in theaters before it's gone, because it is one of those ones that I feel like is deserving to see on the big screen. So anyway, I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.